All right, guys, here we go.
Recording live from the Haley Sisters Memorial Studios, straight out of lovely Elmont, Ontario, it's time for This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your unofficial Warmahordes news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the death clock starts now.
Welcome, everybody, to This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes. It's a little bit of an interesting cast today because I am short my two compatriots that would normally be on either side of me. But to make up for that, I have two people on the stream that are considerably better than either one of them at War Machine. So, without too much further ado, I'm Semi-Auto Magic, and on my right, and also your right, we have Matt McWaters.
Hey.
Welcome to the show, Matt. And to my left and your left, we have a blank screen that normally contains Bubba.
Yes.
That was glorious.
It's very important to do that.
It absolutely is. So thanks.
It's important too. It's triumphant because I wasn't allowed to do that if I wasn't talking or thinking about Kador.
Ah, because when you're not talking about
it's a contractual thing.
Ah, okay. You're just lucky I didn't have the other video queued up.
Oh God.
All right, so I will just let you guys know that one Maelstrom is unfortunately at home with some family issues tonight, and Gorax is in Amsterdam. He's somewhere in Europe, northern part of Europe.
He's in Sweden.
Oh, in Sweden, sorry. He's somewhere in a northern bit of Europe, enjoying himself, taking. I know it seems like he's always in some weird and wonderful place, but this one is actually a vacation. It's the first time him and his good lady wife have been on vacation in many, many years. So good luck to them. So I think we'll just jump into the news. There's a couple of bits that we know have happened recently. We've got the Armored Core and the Chosen of Everblight have just hit the shelves. We'll be talking more about Armored Core, but have either of you gotten to play or play against the Chosen of Everblight?
Yes. I've played against them a few times.
How are you?
No.
Matt, how are you taken to the Chosen?
All right, so I think the Chosen in general are a really good unit, and they operate really well as a screen for Legion. But they are also liabilities in some matchups. So your list building has to kind of account for that. The most popular Animag list that I've seen floating around right now is triple Warmonger, single Chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a lot of beef that's hard to deal with, and the Chosen are very good there. I like them a lot.
They do.
Oh, they're really good.
Yeah, they do have some gorgeous models as well.
Like PP is going to make some serious money there because they are pricey.
Well, they are pricey, but I'll tell you, there's been few things that made me want to dust off Legion more than Dragon Centaurs. Like, I mean,
they're cool. I think they're really cool models, which is saying I fucking hate Legion models. Eyeless Dragons is so stupid, but Chosen are badass looking.
Yep, Chosen are actually the thing that are pulling me to want to play Legion. They look so cool.
Also up, not out this week, but we have seen the pre-order for the Shrine of the Lawgiver. Has anybody seen a scale on this model yet? Do we know how many feet tall it is?
It is bigger than a... Sorry, go ahead.
It's taller than Old Witch.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about a head.
It's an inch taller.
Yeah, it's... If you're a Menoth player and you have a Judicator, it's one gun taller.
It's one Judicator gun taller than a regular Judicator?
Yeah, like the top part of it. It's that much taller.
Wow. And of course...
I played against it. I played against Bryn when I was out west. Bryn, we played a CID game and Bryn used it. That thing's bullshit. That thing's bullshit.
Its gun is real good, and its abilities are also super good.
Just bring back medium bases at 1-to-1.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Like, get wrecked, Convergence.
You bring back IR'd shield wall incinerators, and you're just like, I guess I'm okay here. This is fine.
The
Black Anchor Heavy Industry little goodie they throw in the bag for this one is, of course, an oven mitt.
I haven't actually seen the picture yet, and I saw a post, and I couldn't believe it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, that it's such a train wreck. Why not?
Well, it was a beer cozy for the hooch hauler. Why not a oven mitt for the Menoth? I guess structure. I was going to say
it's
battle
to
engine.
Keep your hands safe while you purge heretics with fire.
Why wasn't it like, a little Bible or, I don't know, some other church thing that I don't know about?
Some other church thing. I think you may have landed exactly on why it wasn't one of those things. Oh, I've just gotten a picture from a viewer. It is a good, oh goodness, it seems like it's a couple inches taller than the Judicator. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's a really cool model. Its rules are really good. If you're a Menoth player, you probably want to get one of those.
And it didn't seem too horribly expensive. I think it was $75 or something like that US.
Oh wow, that's
like I saw it and it seemed very reasonable to me, which I was confused by.
Based on the nature of how solid the pieces coming out of Bahi, like in terms of like solid pieces of resin, I'm surprised that it's going to be that cheap because it's going to just be like a brick.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about buying it is you could always fend off attackers with it, I guess.
Well, it's the old sock jack. You can just grab yourself a behemoth and win every argument.
So transporting it's going to be interesting. I wonder how it's like what its breakpoints are going to be and how you're going to be able to transport it. Because if it's that tall, it's going to take like a 10-inch foam, which is half a bag. That seems suboptimal.
Yeah, it's like transporting those the Convergence TEPs. They're a gigantic pain to get in a bag.
You just put them up your butt. It's fine.
Correct.
That's where everybody who plays against them wants to shove them. So I guess we can just start that way. The Lock and Load keynote is this Friday at noon. So that's 3 p.m. for us on the Eastern side. We're going to try and have maybe not a live stream of that, but probably pretty quickly afterward we'll try and get everybody's reaction. We might do an old school special report. Should be fun. Is there anything that you guys
live on scene?
It'll be me. I'll be there.
Oh yeah, you're at Lock and Load?
I am.
Nice. Well, so what I'll do is I'll just get you to Skype in on your phone, and you can give us the
hard pass. Hard pass.
You can give us the lowdown. So, any predictions from the keynote? We know that there's a new faction, but any other weird and wonderful things you think we'll see?
I haven't really thought about it, but I doubt there'll be anything crazy. I don't think they've got anything nuts on the table.
I have no idea.
Yeah, there'll be a new faction. There'll be they really need to. They have to work through the like finishing up CID rounds
to
get all the factions done. So that'll kind of flush out the rest of the year, and then we'll work on whatever the new faction is next year, and then I don't know. Maybe they'll have like a model of like that represents JVM or something. They'll just put his face on a model. I don't know.
Oh, that's actually a valid point. So they'll probably announce the Christmas models.
They won't announce them. They'll in their video they'll be like the pictures.
Yeah,
and everyone can guess what the fuck they are. It'll be but for Kador it'll be an Assault Commando UA. Just to let you know.
So
breaking news at 11.
So I think they'll do the new faction reveal, an overview of all the CIDs coming up for the next like 6-7 months, and then the Christmas models like hidden in there, and then I don't think the keynote's going to go on for 2 hours, so that's probably all that it'll be.
It'll be short and quick like last year.
Yep.
All right, so we saw the Gaston Crossbones, the newest model from the mini crate, and it's
actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
he's got a cool hat. Got a cool hat. I'm surprised
like
it's Gaston already, but yeah, whatever.
I like it. I like it a lot. It's gonna go get painted as soon as I get it.
And they still have the 6. If you sign up for 6 months, you get Mrs. Walls as well, which is a very complimentary model to that one. So from what I understand, you don't have to. It's not at the first 6 months and the second 6 months. You can just sign up for the 6-month chunk whenever you want, and as long as you sign up for that 6 months, you get the mini crate model for that session. So for the last one, it was, I can't remember. I have it. It's over there in a box. But for the new one, it's Walls, and I think that's it. Oh, no. The last thing was the Black Anchor Heavy Industries models. The Crucible Guard models will not be Black Anchor Heavy Industries, which is really interesting.
So I think that there was a lot of backlash over the initial interpretation of it being Bahi, and people were really afraid of that, not being able to get the 5 huge bases they need for the faction in a reasonable time frame for the year, right? People were really worried, and I think Privateer Press did the really smart thing here, and we're like, no, you can just have the models you need.
Yeah.
I'm surprised at least. I'm not surprised that the caster isn't in Bahi. I knew that wouldn't happen. It's one of the, and then because the caster won't be in Bahi because it just won't be ever, for a new faction like that. The battle engines make sense, but I'm surprised the Colossal isn't.
Yep.
Because that's their new baby now. So, but I guess it's good for the people.
Yep. Do you think we'll see a multi-kit with the caster and the 2 battle engines? Are they similar enough?
I think so. I think each kit will be caster / battle engine. Because they're identical except for the person who goes on the top in the gun. As far as I know, but I'm not an expert.
I do like. You kind of literally are about this, but it's War Machine. You're supposed to be an expert in it. Okay, so that sort of wraps up our news. As we always do at this point, if there's anybody in the chat who has questions about anything we talk about during the cast, just put them up in the chat. I am watching chat. Our guests are watching chat off and on occasionally, and we'll try and answer any questions we have. I'll try and put them up. We won't have a lot of typing interaction from my end tonight. Usually I have Jason doing that while Will and I are talking. Or more to the point, while I laugh, Will talks and Jason drinks. But what we are going to do is we're going to move on to Armored Core. So today,
Okay, that's Armored Core done. Moving along.
Let's get to the real reason we're here. Darts.
Darts, yes. No, last week and this week we've seen all the models for Armored Core finally come out. So both of you have played Kador. I know that. Well, at least one of you is well known for, the wonderful, your wonderful Kador playing. So the transition from CID...
It's not you, Matt.
The transition from CID to official rules. Is there anything that you guys noticed that changed between that last week and what we saw coming out?
Nope.
I don't think anything really changed.
I didn't spot anything either. Now, Privateer Press has talked about how they always go over the information after the end of CID, but more and more it does seem to be whatever the last week of CID was is pretty much the models that are coming out. Do you feel that any of these models needed another looking at, or were these ones that were that had been relatively well balanced coming out the other end?
I think some things needed looking at when they were in the CID. When Matt and I were talking before, I said, and I'm going to say it this time, and I'm not going to say it again, but it is important, that this theme in general was a lot of missed opportunities. And then from then on, we're going to keep things positive about it, and we're going to go over the positives of things. But there was some good things. Absolutely, there were some good things, and there were some things where I'm like, that could have been done differently / better. So,
well, can you give me one model that you would have liked a change that you didn't see in the CID? Just pick one of them
that wasn't included in the CID.
Well, no, that was in the CID that you're like the thing that could have made this model just perfect is it got blank.
The decimator gun went to range 12.
How about the chariots get a whole nother look at?
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's a missed opportunity. Just like the thing. So like the thing that confused me was, okay, so you decided that the chariots are going to be the justification of the open top makes them armor 19 because there's less bulk on there, right? There's less physical metal on the model if you're thinking about it. Yet you're going to make, and they have the same like kind of horses as the gun carriage, but you're going to make it 1 speed less. So it has less weight and less armor, but it's slower than a gun carriage.
It also has less guns on it and less melee attacks and less it has less everything. But it yes. Those are all things that are true.
But it is cheaper.
It is less points
way,
as well.
And
yeah.
way less boxes. Way less boxes.
You like 12 less boxes or something like that?
10. 10?
All right.
It's got 28.
Okay.
But that's significant. That's probably the biggest complaint I've heard is the lack of survivability
of the gun carriages.
I feel like personally the bombardiers are really, really close to something fantastic and neat. But granted clear cut is really, really weird.
So many people are like, well, they have Pathfinder now. I'm like, they have Pathfinder only if they walk.
Yep.
You cannot run or charge. You do not get Pathfinder if you run or charge.
So
it's so close to being great. So close.
So would the just straight giving them Pathfinder, would that have fixed that in your mind?
I think that it's a thematic ability, right? So they're like, oh, they have chainsaws, they cut through forests and water and walls and
cut the fuck out of that water.
It's thematic.
It's like you ever see a snowmobile go across like a lake, like an unfrozen lake. It's like that with their chainsaws. They just like hop on it. And they're just like, brah!
Okay, somebody needs to get on that conversion.
No, honestly, I like this not being negative or anything. I like the theme a lot. I think there's a lot of really cool things about it, and it does some things really well. But it does feel like things are like one little teeny sentence, one little teeny rule short of being something that makes me say I want to play this.
Yeah, it's almost like most of the pieces, they're just kind of like
almost there.
They're like 95%.
Yep. All right. Well, what is your favorite change to a model? Let's start with Bubba on this. Not a new armored core model, but just a model that got changed.
I like that the Victor has viable guns in all situations now. Like its little guns were like kind of a joke at such a little crappy range, and they just didn't really do anything because it's sitting back with its big gun. Its big gun not having inaccurate anymore is a big deal because it is a really good gun. A range 20 gun is going to be pretty good. That's probably my favorite change. Yeah, I can't think of all the changes off the top of my head right now. So,
Matt, what do you think?
As far as applicability and like just design, I think my favorite change is the demo core, who got shatter and crit freeze. I think that's a really cool like setup. I don't think it's like a super great interaction, but it's cool, and I like little cool things like that.
And their interaction with Sorsha 3, her being able to just drop a freeze bomb, makes them nicely hard hitting.
No.
You don't like it?
You could just
how does she get off that freeze bomb?
So let's talk about Sorsha 3's focus situation for a second. So we're gonna assume you have Silas as your mercenary solo because that's the only way she works. She's focus 6. She upkeeps Iron Flesh for free. She's speed 4, so she can only freeze bomb. She can only freeze bomb with a boost to hit if she does nothing else in the turn and walks 4 inches forward and has a 10-inch spell range. So the criteria at which all of these things happen means you probably die because you're camping 1 the following turn.
Yeah. Now you could waste the Kovnik to give her +2 speed. Correct?
You can't. It's unit only.
Oh, it's unit only. Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
So it can't be applied to a solo.
You could wind rush 2 inches and have an unboosted frost bomb.
Yeah.
Or wind rush for 2 and move 4 inches and have an unboosted frost bomb. Sorry.
Yeah.
Now this isn't to say that Sorsha 3 is like bad. She's just she's very resource strapped, and you usually end up only doing one thing a turn with her, which feels underwhelming.
And with a
actually, I changed my previous answer. She's the thing that missed the mark the most.
With only 4 spells on her, you'd think that 6 focus would be okay, but it really doesn't seem to be.
So I think
she needs to be like focus 9 to have like a good turn.
Yep. So I think the problem is that speed 4 is a major problem. If she was speed 5, it wouldn't be nearly as bad, but at speed 4, without the ability to apply her speed buff to herself, she just never gets anywhere to cast anything offensively, and without access to arc nodes. That means all she's doing every turn is upkeeping Iron Flesh and putting the counter charge +2 speed on Jax, which doesn't feel terribly interactive.
Yeah, and that spell's awesome. That's a great spell. Holy cow. Cost 1, like +2 speed counter charge. So she that spell's so good that she needs to cast that every turn. And you're gonna take like 2+ heavies. So you're gonna cast it 2+ times plus wind rushing, and then you're camping 1 anyway.
Yep. But don't worry. She has concealment, so she's defense 14 against guns.
Caca. Yeah, no, like that spell's really good, but yeah, just unfortunate.
Okay, so we know she's not your favorite new Armored Core model. What would you think is your favorite new model through the CID, Matt? We'll start with you.
Sergeant Drago, man, that guy's a boss.
Are we talking model or like rules?
It could be a rule, but I was kind of angling for a new thing as opposed to a changed thing.
So okay, it's kind of hard. I'm gonna go with Sergeant Drago because he is just. I've seen him kill heavies by himself. I'm a big fan. What do you got, Bubba?
Well, first of all, I'm looking at the model right now. The model is amazing. I posted that I think so before it was consensus that the Forge Seer was the best looking model in Khador. Like no question there. Dragos makes a case. It's either Dragos or the Forge Seer now. I would probably put Dragos number 1, just me, because he's a badass. But obviously the best new model out of Armored Core is the Tankers.
Yep.
Because they're legitimately really good. So when the first version of the Suppression Tanker was just pants on head dumb. It was 2 of them just kill your caster every game. from downtown. They're really, really good. I think they got toned down to an appropriate level where they are strong but not broken. And I think they just help a lot of problem areas for Armored Core, like getting charged by weapon masters. That's not something they like, and they can potentially help with that. So I think they're really good.
With that point said, I do think that's somewhere where Sorsha 3 is also really good. She does kind of solve a little bit of the problem with that with her feet, right? Like those clouds do just auto kill any weapon master that charges Mana War. It's a cool interaction.
So the first thing people need to do when they're playing Sorsha is get it out of your head that she's a Mana War caster. She's not. She's a Jack caster.
Yeah.
Like you play her in Armored Core so that you can get flank on your Jacks because that's insanely good. But like you take a few Mana War stuff, Dragoons and like a unit, and then you're like, and then you take a bunch of Jacks.
Yeah, so it's 40 points of dudes and 60 points of Jacks.
Yep.
So, who are your free solos? Is it Forge Seer? Is it suppression
It's never
tankers?
a Forge Seer.
It's never a Forge Seer.
It's 2 oppression tankers. Very important. Very important to note. They are not called suppression tankers. They are called oppression tankers because they are oppressive as fuck.
They are super good. Even the siege one with dual attack he's super impressive too.
They're like the siege ones with like Butcher 1 or a Rusk 2 are just like, yep, we're dumb. Or Vlad 1.
Yeah, I really like. I've killed heavies with 2 of them charging under Vlad 2. It's so disgusting.
Yeah, it's really dumb. So like your tankers. So if you're taking Demo Core, it's just the most expensive models. Like if you're taking Demo Core, Dragos is going to be free because he's 6 points. And then
the 2
but in basically every list, it's the tankers. However many you're taking between 2 and 4, because you're always taking at least 2. Those are your free models. Never a Forge Seer, never a Kovnik. Although you do have to take a Kovnik because
you have to take one.
Yeah,
just one.
Well, you need it for the speed.
Yeah. Well, if you're taking a unit, you need a Kovnik.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also with Tactician, counter charge is also pretty cool.
Yep.
Or is he counter slam or counter charge? He has slam as the Kovnik.
He doesn't have counter anything.
No, Kovnik has just regular
he
slam.
Slam.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
I've never seen it happen, but I know it's theoretically on his card. Now the counter charges with the Dragoons are really good with Tactician.
That's
yeah.
Yep.
It's actually not as cool as like Iron Fangs because you're moving through medium bases with a large base and like your landing spot options are not good. Mm-hmm. But if you just do like a single line of shock troopers and then the Dragoons like right behind them, then you can just be like, fuck you.
So it's I think like the best countercharging thing with Tactician is Sofia Skarova.
Oh my god, she's so good.
That's without question.
Yeah, she's like, oh, now this side of the table is shut down. A Dragoon's kind of similar, but it's just like Bubba said, it's super hard to position that. Your opponent has to just not be aware.
The best thing for Sophia is when there's like a building and a forest.
Yep.
And she just like goes in between them so that you can't move by her. And then she's like, I'm in a Rusk's bubble. Okay, so for 1 turn, you shall not pass. I am motherfucking Gandalf.
Yeah. It is.
Yep. She is definitely when that happens to you and you're like playing a melee list, you're just like, and I've just lost that side of the table. That was fun.
You're like, do I have a Hyperion that can crit consume you right now? No? Fuck. I can't get by. Well, you can. You just take free strikes.
Yeah. It's great.
She'll fuck you up.
Yep.
That's like my favorite. That's like my favorite interaction in Khador.
We were playing, or it wasn't you and I, but we were sitting next to each other and we saw that, right? We're just like, oh my god, that's a thing.
Yeah, we both figured it out at the same time. We're like, oh my god. It's exactly what it was. There was a forest in a building and he put Sophia there. And I was like looking at it, I'm like, he literally cannot move any models across the table. He doesn't have Pathfinder get through this forest, and anything that takes a free strike from her will just die.
Yep.
It was glorious.
That was the dumbest thing. Oh my god.
Now, will RFP get around that?
No.
No.
She has Inhuman Resolve. She never reaches that step.
So she never gets to RFP.
Nope.
Well, unless you RFP at
Boxed?
and disabled, it's the first step. Nothing does it except for crit consume, pretty much.
Crit consume gets around it, and that's pretty much it. But
Nice.
it's hilarious. I love that interaction.
Yep.
Okay, so your general consensus is that Armored Core, the models specifically, are almost there. I'm going to get each of you to come up with an Armored Core list. It doesn't have to be exact, like point exact, but I want kind of like an idea of what your idyllic Armored Core list is. So we'll start with Bubba on this one.
So I think, and Matt will probably come up with, there's basically like two trains of thought with Armored Core. There's two casters you can play to have like the best chance, and that's Vlad 2 and a Rusk 2. And they have two different styles. So I'll do Vlad 2. The Vlad 2 style is like, I'm going to crank them up to 11 for the one turn. They're going to do a shit ton of work. Whereas a Rusk 2 is like, I'm going to bring the dudes, and it's going to be annoying. So Vlad 2 would be a Victor, Double Dragoon, Demo Corps, Shock Troopers, and some tankers. Like, that's it. And the Kovnik. That's the whole list.
And the Chaosi.
And if you can fit a unit of Chaosi Eliminators, you fit a unit of Chaosi Eliminators. And then it's a standard plan. You're like walking up, you're doing some shooting. Tankers are being assholes. Because that's just what tankers do. They're just assholes. And then you feat. And like you have so many feat options in that list. Like you can feat on Dragoons. That's the first thing you feed on. There's like a list. And you're like, okay, the order of things I feed on: Dragoons. Can I feed on my 2 Dragoons? Yes. Okay, check. Can I feed on the Chaosi? No. Moving down. Can I feed on the Shock Troopers or the Demo Corps? Okay, tanker. Like it's just there's so many good options there to feed on, and then they go in and they're just tankers. Like you're just like, oh, so you're def 13, armor 24. Okay then.
That's a thing.
No.
They also go up to speed 8.
Oh, that is a fast tanker.
Speed 8 bulldoze. Seems fine.
So, Matt, what is the other list?
So I risk 2 all the dudes. So Bubba alluded to it. So you take all the shock troopers you can. Oh, getting some Bubba lag.
Yep. He's turned into a robot.
8. Speed.
I think he's still talking about Speed 8. Oh, there he is.
Welcome back.
They're Speed 7.
Oh, are they Speed 4 base?
Yeah.
Oh.
They're a Man of War. Come on.
I'm bad. All right. So the IRUSK 2 list. So you just take all the shock troopers, all the Demo Corps. You just run them at people, and then you just battle less things, and things evaporate.
Oh, yeah.
They're all tough, no knockdown tacticians, so you don't need to take the tactician solo. You feat to ignore forests and clouds in the center of the table, plus control your opponent's ability to counterpunch. And you're just like, I win games by being tanky and killing you with 2 models at a time. Here you go.
Yep. Those are the 2 like successful ways to run the list. And then there's like the dumb ways to run the list, where you take Vlad 1, 4 chariots, and some tankers, and a Victor. That's really good. And then you take like I've been like fucking around with lists where you take like Butcher 1. I did like mathed out Butcher 1 and a Siege Chariot.
Okay.
And a Siege Chariot with feet will kill a Khador Heavy. And like it'll kill like a Spriggan, like armor 21. It's really fucking good. So it can just like go around fucking up people. It's cool. Or like a Rust 2 with strike tankers is really good. So.
Yeah, I think that there's actually a lot of really good Armored Core lists. Like, as much as like Bubba and I were saying, like the models are just 95% of the way there, they're still good. Like the models are fine. They're not inspiring. Like they have all of the rules that make them playable and great, just not the things that make them go, holy shit, I need to play this. And I think that's a really big thing.
Oh, the other really cool list I actually saw, I can't remember, some random guy posted this. It's Butcher 3 Armored Core And like, because when you make a Butcher 3 list, you're all about, I need a delivery system for Butcher. You're like, how does he get there? So you play him in Winter Guard so that he can't get shot because he's sack pawn, or you play him Jaws so you just stand behind Jax. Well, you can play him in Armored Core with 3 units of shock troopers who just like make this huge fucking wall, and then he just comes up behind that, and then he like jumps out and kills everyone.
That's a very Butcher thing to do. So now this is a little deeper question. Do you think Armored Core actually added anything to the faction? Like, is it going to have an effect?
Yeah, I think in general, I mean, it adds a lot of things to KTOR that kind of it was missing. But at the same time, like it adds things because, you know, Jax got more expensive, Marauders and Juggernauts went up a point respectively. So while KTOR lost the ability to spam as well as it did gain flexibility in Armored Core. So it does add things. Mostly a different list that does different things than like Pikeman, a list that can actually shoot and melee at the same time, and something that just doesn't auto die to guns or control effects while being good at melee.
The big thing is that it can be built to either be melee or to be guns, which every other KTOR theme basically doesn't have that option. Like, not in a good either way. Like, you're like, yeah, well, I can take guns with Iron Fang Pugman. Like, sure, you can take some guns, but they're shit. So like that flexibility is cool. It's just not gonna, you know, go crazy.
So it's not something that you imagine seeing at the top tables.
I think Vlad 2 Armored Core will see a lot of play. The big thing about Armored Core is I think it's good, and I think it does well into a lot of things. Its biggest problem is that it cannot play very successfully into any of the top lists currently in the game. Like it's not going to play Slayers. It's not going to play Haley 3. It's not going to play Primal Terrors. It's not going to play against Derp Turtles. It's not going to play against the other bullshit out there. And because it can't play into basically any of that, it's not going to win anything. It's not going to see a ton of top level play. But it is still fine. Like, I think you can take it to a local steamroller or something and do fairly well, because it is, you know, decently structured to win some games. It's just not going to rule the world in any way, shape, or form, or win anything big. So I think the big thing, like, is Manowar gets a lot of matchups to 50-50. Like, it doesn't slam dunk any of the meta matchups, right? Like, it's not going to out Maylock. It's not going to, like Bubba hit the nail on the head. It's not going to crush any of the super powerful lists, but it can play a game against a lot of them. But that doesn't feel good. Like, when you have options that slam dunk those, why would you pass over that and take something that's worse into those matchups?
Mm-hmm. So you only see this as being maybe a third list in a triad, or if you just love Mana Wars and that's your thing, maybe you'll get to 50% with a lot of these really hard matchups.
I would probably just play Old Witch 2 Rockets into everything, and then have Mana War as a list that I can sometimes drop.
Yeah, the biggest problem with it is it generally, you're like, okay, it's like gonna go in there and it's gonna like hit pretty hard, and it's got dudes and they smash shit, and you're like, but I can just take Pikeman. So that's I think its biggest downfall is it's just Pikeman. Like, Pikeman are probably just better.
Alrighty. Well, I think we're going to leave Armored Core for a little while, and get into our next topic, which is Crucible Guard. Now, we're about to see the release of Crucible Guard. If you have War Room, you have basically seen the release of Crucible Guard. We have final rules. Or, sorry, I should say, if your War Room updated correctly and you don't need to uninstall and reinstall it, and as long as you're on iOS, because there have been some problems sort of rolling out the Crucible Guard cards. But what I want to talk more about than specifics of Crucible Guard are some of the implications for Privateer Press of Crucible Guard coming out as a yearly release. So this is the second in what seems to be a non-ending release cycle of new small faction a year, along with little bits for every other faction. So with Crucible Guard as a faction, what does it mean to just keep dumping all these new factions in? Matt, let's start with you. What do you think about us just basically continuing to get a new faction every single year?
So I think that the game's at a point where we have more things. So first of all, the game has more things in it than it's ever had, right? And especially with the new faction coming out every year, that's going to continue to grow. And I think this is why we saw the rework of Champions to be a more more coherent limited format. So the problem with getting a faction every year is that unless you're hyper competitive and willing to put in the hours to learn that new faction, you're always going to be at a knowledge disadvantage. We see this with Grimkin all the time, where we have I see this at conventions all the time, where I go and I play and I'm listening to a Grimkin game, and we're in the semifinals, and the guy goes, "Well, I've never played against Grimkin before," and I'm like, yeah. So you have no idea how Arcana work, and the Grimkin player just gets a really big advantage in that matchup. And as more factions come out, that's going to continue to be a thing. If you were to go to a Steamroller tomorrow and someone had Crucible Guard, would you be able to play a game and know all of its things? I have a lot of CID games with Crucible Guard, and I still feel like I'd get fucked. And that's the thing. As more factions release, the amount of brain space you need to dedicate to those factions grows. So it makes it harder for people getting into the game to learn everything. Eventually, you're just going to come to a point where you have to accept that it's impossible to know everything about the game. You're just going to have to accept well, I'm going to have to play this game and read the cards before the game. And that's what you're going to have to do.
Bubba?
Yeah, it's exactly correct. You're going to get... You're already Grimkin. I played in a War Machine Weekend qualifier 2 weeks ago, and I played against Grimkin in the semifinals, and I was like, yeah, I've never played against Heretic before. I don't fucking know. I know what he does-ish. We'll just kind of run with it. I don't know. And, some things got fucked. It's a problem, how ridiculous the line is already. But what it's going to do is it's going to bring in new players who see a thing that's different and cool. It's going to bring back old players that see a thing that's different and cool. But the current player base that carries on with it year after year after year is going to maybe be enthralled if it's cool enough. But they're just going to be well, I already have these 3 factions, so I don't really need it. And it's definitely going to make the tournament scene a lot harder, especially and then your list pairing in 3 years from now, when there's another 3 factions, and you're okay, well, now when list pair needs to cover Crucible Guard and Zoo and Crix and Signar and this, it's just impossible. You can't cover it all. So the list chicken situation, or the situation where you you always have a dodge, and you're well, I need to dodge this, and now you're I need to dodge this, and this, and this. Oh, I ran into them 3 times today, so now I'm at 1 and 3. Fuck.
So do you think this is gonna go ahead, Matt?
So I think that with all the with the negatives of there obviously being more things in the game you have to learn, there's also really big positives that go along with that, right? Grimkin didn't, Bubba said it, Grimkin did bring a lot of people back to the game. A lot of people bought into Grimkin. And those are all really good things. I think that we have to temper our expectations here, right? if you're the type of player who goes and plays every week, like a game a week, this doesn't affect you. Like, it doesn't matter how many factions are in the game for you, because you're never going to know everything that's in every faction anyways. You play a game a week. But if you're at the top of the meta and you're like, well, I need to learn what every like competitive player is playing and be able to predict it and like have skills, then like this is going to drive you crazy. You're going to try really hard, and like you're going to either come to the point where you just give up and like have to like play bad matchups and win bad matchups that you know nothing about because it's impossible to cover everything, or you're going to drive yourself insane trying to find answers.
Yep. Plus, like, we're going to get cool new stuff. You know, Crucible Guard has sweet tank trains. Those are cool. And like rocket men that are awesome.
I'm buying Crucible Guard. They look fucking sweet. I'm in.
Yeah. Yep.
They look cool. So like that's a big positive, was we're gonna get cool looking models. And like the other cool thing is the as long as they can implement it slowly into other factions, is some of the interesting like especially with Grimkin and Crucible Guard, it's like the interactions and innovative like new rules and abilities and that kind of thing. Because we've seen a big change for both in terms of like that kind of stuff, and like there's really cool synergies and all this like weird interactions, and as long as they can start implementing that into the current factions, like if they don't kind of have it, like Khador has nothing. Khador has no synergies, no like layering, nothing. They're just like derp derp derp. That's, you know, okay, whatever. Like start implementing that a bit, implement it a bit more into some other factions too, and it'll be like really interesting, because like the depth can increase for the other factions as well, based on the cool new stuff that PP learns when they're creating new models, because they're trying to push the boundaries of making things new and fresh, but some of that can get carried over to previous things in like CIDs and stuff.
So I think the best example of this is the rush change to Gorman.
Yep, like exactly.
That's a really good change. I'm a really big fan of it. It's just good for the game health, and like that's a product of them working on Crucible Guard and like hammering out rules. Another really good example is lightning immunity and the grounded rule, which is a product of Company of Iron. So like even developing new and fun game systems and like their weekly games has a huge benefit to the game as a whole. I think the thing that makes me most excited about new factions coming out every year is the possibility of factions getting models and interactions they normally wouldn't have. And I think Bubba hit the nail on the head there. I think that's something that everyone should be excited about.
Yeah, that's the positive to look forward to. If you're not like, maybe you think that a new faction has nothing to do with your faction. Well, maybe it does, because you know, like Crucible Guard has a convergence caster.
Yeah,
like that's
something I'm really excited for.
That's a little thing there. Maybe whatever, the Zoo come out and they have a fucking solo that is from Khador, because he's like some adventurer guy, right? I don't know. Like the possibilities are endless there. So.
Now, we have seen, well, for those people who don't know about it, we've seen that PP is already removing some SKUs from distributors, making some of their least sold models something that your store has to order directly from PP now. Do you think that adding all these new SKUs is going to be a problem for local stores who want to start carrying War Machine?
I think
I've heard before, like, well, it's impossible to carry the whole line. There's just a ridiculous amount of stuff, and I've heard that from like local stores and owners that I've talked to before. They're like, yeah, like it's just impossible. You kind of like stock the popular stuff, and then like if something new comes out, you bring like one or two in, depending on your player base. You hope you sell them, and then like if you need more, you just order them in, because it's just way too big. So if they're dropping the least popular stuff, I personally don't really care, and I bet you local gaming stores don't really care, because the line is just so massive that
they're already
they're not stocking it all anyway.
So I think that in general, dropping the SKUs is a step in the right direction. Just because Bubba hit the nail on the head again. You're you're not like no store's stocking the whole line really. Like there's no one stocking Cossite Woodsman ×5. Like that's just not a thing that's happening.
Not on purpose anyway.
Yeah, no one's doing that intentionally. No one wants to have $200 of product sitting on their shelf because no one's going to buy it. So what you would end up with is a situation where they say, okay, this 30% of the game that never sells is gone, and we're replacing that 30% with a new faction. And that new faction will sell really well. It's only beneficial to stores. And like speaking from my own personal experience and like local stores, like many of them don't really carry that much anymore. Like they'll stock all of the new releases, they'll do all the orders, but they just simply won't restock stuff that's sold most of the time unless it's in high demand. Like they'll be like, oh, order from us if you want it, because for them stocking $10,000 or $40,000 worth of product is not worth it. That's just a huge investment for something that may sit on the shelf.
Yep. And I can't blame a local store at all, because it's just insane for them to have that kind of money sitting on the shelf that will very likely never sell. Like you might sell 3% of it. Like it's just unrealistic.
Do you think this this level of SKU bloat really benefits online retailers and pushing them away from the local stores? Just because an online retailer theoretically has a large enough catchment that they can stock everything and have everything to you within a day or two, where a local store, usually their big thing is you don't have to order. You walk in, you buy the models at the place you play because you're already there anyway and you need X model.
So there's like two things. So local stores sell things on impulse. Mm-hmm. That's where they make their money. Like you come in, you play a game and you're like, man, I lost to Kador. I really need something that can break armor. I heard Bane warriors are really good at breaking armor, so I'm going to buy some of them. Like that's the appeal of a local store. The appeal of an online store is that you get your product delivered to your door and you can get whatever you want. And it's usually cheaper. So like a local store can't compete in the same space as an online store. Like that's just generally not the way that they have to work. So I think that if Privateer Press really wanted to go all in on this and make it successful, the proper solution would be to have a buyer's guide for stores. So like they could say, these are our most popular selling models. So if you're going to stock the game, these are what you should stock.
To be fair, they do actually have that. They have a thing called their core guide.
Yeah. But I mean, like keeping that up to date and like maybe having someone at the company that can like recommend, you know, like these are what's competitive, or having an employee that's knowledgeable on this, or just talking to your community in general, prevents you from investing the $30,000 you need. Like people normally invest into a game and are mad because it didn't sell that much.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know this is an unfair comparison because of the sizes of the two companies, but something that GW does for their independent retailers is that once a week they have a product call. And the product call has, you know, all the new releases coming out, things that you might want to restock because they're getting a change, stuff like that. And they take feedback from the local stores. Unfortunately, I think because of PP's size, they don't have that person. It might behoove them to get that person, but it's not something that, because I think of their size and the way their company is set up right now, that they don't have that direct feedback. And it might be something that they need to start doing now that the line is getting just so damn big. So the fact that the number of factions is growing, the number of models is so huge, do you think the answer, do you think Masters is going to just by its very nature fade away in favor of Champions more?
It's going to take a really long time because Masters is so established and Champions is just like a fake format. And if you've ever won a Champions, like who the fuck cares? Because no one gives a shit. It's all about winning Masters. So PP is doing a good job pushing it and supporting it, although they kind of bent a knee to Masters in terms of like the Iron Gauntlet World Championships or whatever the fuck it's called now, PP World Championships.
Yeah.
When they're like, oh, it's now it's IG or Masters. We'll include both, because they kind of realize that Masters still has a stranglehold on the meta itself in that way.
Yep.
And like if you ask anyone in like the competitive War Machine world, and you're like, well, like, would you rather win like the IG World Championship at Lock and Load, or would you rather win War Machine Weekend? 99.9% of people are going to say War Machine Weekend, because it's just the event and it's a Masters. That's the example I always see. I think eventually, if PP can keep supporting it like properly, making the investment of their time and efforts into it, not so much like, well, obviously they have to pour money in it to develop it and all that, but like, I'm not saying like pour money into it. I'm just saying, care for it, make it good, show that you care, and support it in that way. It could eventually be there because, if you build it, they will come. But it'll be really, really hard to supplement the War Machine Weekend style, at least in North America, because like that's where it's at.
I think they're making the push for champions, right? Like that's what they're trying to do. They're going through the effort. Like we're seeing that with the rework of the champions format, ADR dropping out of Masters and becoming a thing exclusive to champions. Like they're obviously making a push towards limited format. They understand that the game is growing and that they're going to continue growing, and the only way the player base can keep up to date is with a limited format. They understand that. And like Bubba said, it's going to take time. I think that their obvious push is towards champions. Like after this year, all IGs are going to be champions, is what they've said. And I think that's going to be their effort, is to make the game a limited format game. And I don't know what the plans they have are. But I think that the getting like War Machine Weekend and other conventions, supporting that in one way or another is probably the first step they're looking towards.
They can't do it. Like they cannot do it all on their own. They need to reach out to the various gigantic cons and the pillars of the community in terms of organization and all that to help them, because they need to spread their net far and wide if they want it to really, really catch on, rather than just being like, oh, this is a thing we think is cool, so you guys should all play it. We play it at the HQ all the time. Like, it's gonna take a lot of work.
I think something simple is making something as like IG is it's a pretty big event, and making it champions is a good step. But making other events be champions as the primary is probably the step they need to take to make it a thing. And I don't think you can do that without having a direct hand in those events. It's pretty, like, as Bubba said before, Masters is what everyone wants to win.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that champions needs a War Machine Weekend? Like somebody to champion the champions event the way War Machine Weekend?
It has it. That's the World Championships at Lock and Load.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not. It's absolutely bigger than it used to be. It's just not like this big. It's not like this overly prestigious thing. For example, I have qualified for the IG World Championship 3 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I have never attended.
Do you think the answer is what some game systems do, where if you win a large enough tournament for their version of Iron Gauntlet, you are flown to the location? Do you think that would incentivize it enough that people will push towards it?
That'll never happen. They give you so if you qualify for the IG World Championship, you get a free ticket into Lock and Load. Mm-hmm. So like that helps. Same with War Machine Weekend. If you qualify for War Machine Weekend, you get a free ticket to War Machine Weekend. But like I said, I've qualified for the IG World Championship 3 times, and I've qualified for War Machine Weekend 3 times, and I've been to one of them 3 times and one of them not.
Yeah.
And this year, like I don't have any more holidays to take for either, but I am so like Lock and Load's coming up. I'm not going.
Mm-hmm.
War Machine Weekend in November, I will do whatever it takes to take a few days off from work to go.
To go to that event, yeah.
Because it's just like I'm not missing it because it's that big. Whereas IG's just not quite there yet. But like a couple years ago, no, like it was there. And like the first year and the second year, like Jay won, and then somebody else won. I can't remember who won the second year. It might have been Davies. But like people were just kind of like, yeah, it's cool, like whatever. But now it's like it's getting bigger. They've changed the format too, which is important, like how you qualify to be a little more open and like more people can get in. So that's good. Like it's going to be like this year especially is going to be a much bigger field than usual. I think the previous times it was always like top 16 got in and that was it.
Yep.
And now this year's like 50 people have qualified ish. Like not that all of them will be there, definitely won't, but like a lot of them will be. So that'll be a good. And as long as they can keep like hashing out the format, because that's the other big thing is they keep changing like what they're doing. So like if they're like, okay, champions is what we want, champions is what we're gonna do. We're gonna stick to that. Okay, it's gonna be champions, IG World Championship or the Champions World Championship, whatever you want to call it now.
Yeah,
I'm sure they'll change the name. That'll be the thing. As long as they can keep rolling with it with some consistency going forward, that'll help grow it a lot as well.
All right, so I think I'm going to take this chance to sort of put a cap on this cast. We're hitting our hour mark. So I want to do a couple local shout-outs. Of course, we always shout out Muse because they're the guys who get us on the air, as it were. And, of course, to our local Out of the Box, who, after all that talking, they actually do to stock the entire privateer press line. And when new models come in, they generally have to order 5+ of them. But I am fully aware that Ottawa is the weird-ass anomaly in this case. So order your models from Out of the Box. If you're in the Ontario region, he does U.S. MSRP in Canadian dollars, and his shipping is ludicrously low. I want to thank both Bubba and Matt for coming out today. Bubba, I know Fergus doesn't have a bustling hub of War Machine, but are there any relatively local events that you want to shout out?
Well, like TGX is coming up next month. Tabletop Gaming Expo in Toronto/Mississauga, whatever it's technically in.
Whichever bit. Yeah.
So that'll be a pretty big con, War Machine Weekend qualifier. I'll be there, staying up for 3 days, like I do when I go to a con, because I'm driving back to work every day. Other than that, I think there's some local tournaments around that I probably won't attend.
Excellent.
Very important to note, though, before my good friend Kevin Villio, I love you.
Excellent. Matt, pimp your local meta and any tournaments that you got coming up.
All right, so on the 30th, we have a Champions format tournament in Montreal. That will be the new Champions roster and the new format. So you're a new ADR plus the limited theme forces. You only have to play one list, no DNC. And then after that, there's other shit, but the TGX is a thing and stuff.
Yep.
Just stuff and junk.
We should mention, I didn't do it during the news segment because for a lot of us it's old news now, but we do also see new Steamroller very soon.
Yep.
So
Monday the 24th, I believe, is the launch of Steamroller 2018.
Yep, that'll be in their keynote
25th.
as well. It'll be in the keynote as well. Don't expect major changes. Two new scenarios, nothing drastically different.
Awesome. All right, so thank you once again, and it's Dice Down.
Dice Down! Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.
and